coffee. So I'm using you know what it is when you use the same beans again, right? That's what's going on. That's what's going on. But when you love what you do, you find the energy. So welcome back and welcome to season 3 of me and my friend Pete, another Donuts and Dimes production. This is the Amazing Spider-Man podcast highlighting all things the Amazing Spider-Man comic book series. I am the voice of viability for the Golden Liability. His mama named him Gerald. And before we dive in, you know we trying to make the donuts, and you know we cannot do that on dimes. So head on over to patreon.com/HSPP and sign up to the Key Keeper or High Council tiers. Patrons get exclusive access to our season 3 bonus episodes chosen by, well, the patrons. Power to the patrons. In our last bonus episode, Namor the Submariner, battered, bruised, and nearly beaten with 1-on-100 versus one of humanity's ugliest fascist groups. Spoiler alert, a lot of Nazis got punched in the face. What more can a fan of comics ask for? Shameless plugs out of the way, we take a break from the main story of Amazing Spider-Man to bring you Spidey's 4th annual tale. We've got Hollywood, we've got the Long Island Igniter, we've got Spyance back in his element versus two foes who've mastered the art of showmanship and hustling backwards, if nothing else. But before we do the play, we need the players. For a spotlight on Johnny Storm, the Long Island Igniter, the Human Torch, check out season 1's 4th episode, We Didn't Start the Fire, here on Me and My Friend Pete. And for a spotlight on one half of this issue's dastardly duo, cue the bright lights, roll cameras, clear the soundstage, sound check. Sounds good. Let's do it. Testing 1, 2, 3 as we present The Wizard. Bentley Whitman, sometimes known as the Wingless Wizard, better known as the Wizard, first appeared in Strange Tales number 102 in November of 1962. So he's only a few short months younger than the King of Swing. He's 5 feet 8 inches tall and 150 pounds on the weigh-in, with hazel eyes and brown hair, and is most notably affiliated with the Frightful Four and Intelligentsia. His history. Bentley Whitman was not a person lacking gifts, and his origin story brings the whole nature versus nurture debate into mind. Blessed at birth with near superhuman levels of genius, he was a child prodigy and chess champion. Growing to adulthood, he put that genius to work, becoming a world-famous inventor who only sold his gadgets to the wealthy, making himself rich in the process. A man with a flair for the dramatics, he became a stage magician, using his advanced technology to perform magic under the stage name, The Wizard. Fame, wealth, brilliance, you gotta know anybody with those traits in the Marvel 616 universe not named Tony Stark always wants more. And in the case of a one Bentley Whitman, he wanted excitement and more attention than the press was giving to the newest kids on the block, the Fantastic Four. What better way to get some than taking on 1/4 of the quarrelsome quartet, the Human Torch? He did just that, laying a trap for the Long Island Igniter. The trap sprung, he captured the Human Torch, then impersonated the hero, launching a crime spree in his likeness, his dastardly deeds only ending when the Human Torch and Invisible Woman, nay girl, proved Johnny's innocence. He went to prison, escaped, and along with the Sandman, Paste Pot Pete, aka the Trapster, and the Inhumans Medusa, suffering from amnesia at the time, became a founding member of the Frightful Four, the villainous counterpart to the Fantastic Four, and since then has spent decade after decade with multiple incarnations of the group, mainly trying to end the lives, reputation, and good standing of Marvel's first family. He pops up often in Marvel Comics, most recently in the amazingly drawn and written Scarlet Witch and Quicksilver Volume 1 earlier this year as a herald of the Griever at the end of all things. Now a true wizard, he nearly succeeded in taking out Marvel's most dynamic twins in the universe at large. But if there's one thing you gotta know about the Wizard, he usually tends to pick the losing side. And the cost for choosing the wrong side this time? Quoted from the Scarlet Witch. Banishment. I knocked the hope from the wizard's soul and cast him down to a realm where thought attracts tireless swarms of hornets. He'll have fun. Yikes! Remember, do not with the Scarlet Witch. The wizard's abilities: genius level intellect, mastery of stage magic, escapology, and disguise. His gauntlets, known affectionately as his Wonder Gloves, give him superhuman strength, energy projection, and air vortexes he calls Typhoon Spears. His armor gives him damage resistance, generates a force field, and of course, because he's petty, allows him to mimic the Human Torch's powers. His helmet gives him cyberpathy, the ability to psychically interact, communicate, and control technology with his mind. specifically his suit, which he controls with a technopathic link. And his greatest invention, his anti-gravity discs, are controlled using his armor. About the size of a large coffee cup and resembling glowing frisbees, the anti-gravity discs can each lift several hundred pounds and grant the wizard flight. The wizard's only got one weakness, a non-lethal peanut allergy, because why not? You think with all those brains, he'd have taken care of that. Either way, we've got the players. Here's the play.
The credits.
The writer on this one was Stan the Man Lee, pencils by Larry Lieber, inks by Mickey Ever-Delightful DeMayo, and the letterer was Jerry Feldman.
The cover.
The cover of this comic takes place in a black negative space with the title,
The Amazing Spider-Man.
in goldenrod yellow atop SJ blue on top of spider's webs as usual. Above the title in a red banner we get
King Size Special.
And below the title we see the Long Island Igniter, flames on. He's flying with both hands out in front of him, his whole body engulfed in fire, his lower half slightly twisted as he sprays an intricate pattern of fire, rounded and pointed. It kind of resembles a star-shaped web, giving big Christmas tree vibes, from his hands towards the greatest superhero this side of the East River, the Amazing Spider-Man, who, agility on best ever, is in the foreground stage right, his right hand pressed against the black negative space, his right above his head, his whole body horizontal, both legs off the floor, kicked out towards stage left, his head looking up at the torch, his buggy eyes narrowed. Clearly, neither man has come to talk. Above Spidey's outstretched left hand in a screen caption box it reads,
An all-new 41-page epic battle, starring Spidey and the Torch.
An arrow caption box pointing down beneath the Torch's hand thickens the plot.
Plus, features, surprises, and two great mysterious guest villains.
Two villains cloaked in shadow, one wearing a literal cloak, are hidden from our view by shades of black and blue. And a final banner caption box gives us the title of this 41-page epic.
The Web and the Flame.
Let's get into it. Page 1 opens to The Amazing Spider-Man.
The Web and the Flame.
Beneath this, we get a screen caption box.
41 frantic pages of fabulous far-out thrills as Spidey and the Torch battle and brawl from coast to coast.
And beside this box, the King of Swing from Forest Hills, Queens, the Amazing Spider-Man. Suited and booted in his classic red and blue. He's spraying a web line from his right hand towards a nearby green skyscraper as he airwalks alongside the building high above the city. And you know if Spidey's alone, he's giving the game away.
The sound of desperate shouting, the screeching of pranks from around the corner. I better swing on down and see what's shaking.
We turn the page. What's shaking? On 2, Spidey clings to the sheer wall of a low-rise building's luggage store in a small corner of a 2-page spread. On the street below, people shout and make tracks.
The Torch has turned bad, and no one can stop him.
I knew it! I always knew it! None of those superpowered savages can be trusted. They're too uncontrollable. They're menaces. Every single one of them.
Lady is carrying her groceries. She got on green. She got her thighs out. She is upset. Bro, why y'all picking today to be savages? Another dude in a blue suit looking over his shoulder races away screaming,
Why don't the police get here before he burns the whole city down around us?
Spidey, as confused as the rest of the onlookers, wonders what the hell the Torch is up to, as a fiery swirl of fire marking the Human Torch's flight path does a loop through the majority of page 2, and we find the Torch burning through the side of an armored truck easily, both arms out in front of him as he shouts,
Flame on! Gangway world, on your feet, clear the street, make way for the zooming, fuming Human Torch.
making his presence known on page 3. A man in an SJB suit and light blue fedora with orange band. He's styling. Gotta give it to him. Cowers near a traffic signal shouting a question. Namely, why doesn't anyone stop the human matchstick? Another dude, about as wise as they come, shouts it's a good idea. But who's gonna do it? On 4, you know who's ready to put themselves between the people and the danger. Spidey, on the roof of a luggage store, sprays a web line from his right shooter towards a lamppost.
Well, I don't know what got into that nut.
That's what
Someone's
he
gotta
says.
stop him. And it looks like I'm elected. It's almost enough to make a fella swear off wall crawling.
And we got action. Spidey leaps from the rooftop in the gutter between panels, intercepting the Human Torch midair, shouting that the party's over.
Spider-Man, what are you doing here?
And you know Spidey's reply.
Nothing much, just hanging around.
And you know our hero can walk in quick pot shots at the same time. We find out he's loaded up his web shooters with his patent-pending asbestos webbing and sprayed a liberal amount across the midsection of the Human Torch in the gutter between panels, really quickly. I do not know how Spider-Man, the Torch, Asbestos Man, none of these people came away with illnesses. Asbestos is highly toxic and it was used in everything in the 1960s. So the fact that the Torch and Spider-Man are still running around today says a lot about their durability. Asbestos Man is dead as a doorknob. Either way, we find them in the next panel. Torch shouting for Spider-Man to chill out. Spidey replying that he'll free the man of the asbestos whipping as soon as he gets the hero down to Earth. But Spidey must have forgotten about the flaming buzzsaws and the hot temper of the hothead.
Don't bother, Webhead. You never saw the day when you could put down this flaming firebrand. I'll make you wish you never laid eyes on the Human Torch.
And taking aim at the lamppost Spidey's webline is attached to, the Torch sends a jet of flame directly at it, dragging the golden liability along for the ride. The property damage is about to go through the roof. I just know it. On 5, the lamppost has been burned clean through where the Torch's flame has hit it. And pointing out that Spidey can't fly, he claps both hands above his head and spins like a top to unwind himself of Spidey's webbing.
Now don't go away, son. As soon as I spin myself loose, I'll get back to you. It's about time you learn to mind your own blister brain business.
Spidey, disoriented from the spin and now high above the ground, goes into free fall immediately, belly flop first.
I gotta shoot some webbing out and catch him to a wall before. Now what?
But the Torch has got him covered.
Didn't think I'd let you fall and splatter the sidewalk down there, did you? Here's a little fire net to slow you down, sonny. By heating the air molecules to just the right temperature, I can make them dense enough to give you some support.
The Torch, hanging with Reed for so long, has made him a little science-y. A flame net mixed with increasing the density of the air slows Spidey's descent. On 6, Spidey falls towards the ground in a green fire hydrant, safe and sound, feet first, beneath the fire net. He says the Torch is all heart, but still a fink. The Torch, soaring above a mod shop, says he only helped Spidey to safety so he could use our hero to mop the landscape with him. But Spidey's a one-man mod team. He crouches low, gripping the green fire hydrant, his back to the Torch, goading the matchstick, shouting if the man's feeling froggy, he should leap then, as people run in opposite directions on the street behind him.
That's it, Matchhead. Just a little closer. Here he comes. He's exactly in position. Now!
In the gutter between panels, Torch takes the bait, racing towards our hero, unaware of Spidey gripping the hydrant. And just for clarity, the average fire hydrant weighs anywhere from 150 to 500 pounds. Spidey's torn this thing from the ground like you and I'd lift a baby, wrenching it from its base towards stage right, sending a jet of water shooting straight up at the exact moment Torch tries to make impact in this, our
Panel of the Week.
The water hits the flame brain straight on, filling the air with smoke, dousing a nearby green Oldsmobile in what I imagine is both heat and water damage. I hope that guy's got insurance. And I hope the Torch is burning hot enough to survive, because the way this sound effect, shoosh, covers the majority of this panel, lets me know he's either going to be unconscious or pissed. 7 opens to Spidey proving he was outside when New York heat waves hit. He puts his hands together and uses them to aim the water towards the now nearly completely extinguished Human Torch, who falls from the sky and onto the awning of a shop called the Corner Grill. I imagine they make the best pastrami on rye in the city. While he's cooling off, Spidey forces the hydrant back onto a spot on the ground and secures it in place with a bit of web foam. And to be sure, the Torch ain't unconscious, but he is pissed.
You web-happy hyena. When my flame returns, I'll give you a hot foot from head to toe.
Like Spidey's gonna give him that chance. He races towards the Torch, alliteration going crazy.
Oh yeah? In that case, I won't wait till you can flame on again. I'll finish your lamentable little lesson right now.
The Torch, not to be outdone even where wordplay is concerned, leaps from the awning, game as ever.
Do your worst, wise guy. Even without my flame, I'm not scared of a miserable masked magpie like you.
But then, suddenly, we turn the page and we're on
The Infinity Page.
Page 8, just in time to
Hold it! Hold it!
a man in a monocle, green turtleneck and brown slacks, both hands up, races towards the battling heroes, past stage lights and camera setup. Spidey, as confused as the rest of us, asks the man who he is, but the Torch seems to already know.
Don't stop us now, Mr. Bellini. Not till I pulverize him.
But Bellini won't allow his star to be caught up in a common brawl. That's what he says, a common brawl, as if the two most famous metahumans on Earth getting it shaken is ridiculously boring to him. Spidey, recognizing the man's name and monocle, I'm sure, asks what's happening here. Bellini, jabbing a finger at our hero, replies,
And now, you masked meddler, you just ruined an entire scene in my latest movie, The Torch Goes Wild. Movie? You mean, oh boy. Only a full-time creep like you would have messed things up without asking someone first.
This ain't the first time Spidey's ruined the production. Way back in season 1, 17th episode, Vicious Vicissitudes. Spidey leapt before he looked then too, and made this very same mistake, so I'm starting to see a pattern. Namely, if there's one thing Spidey's gonna do, it's leap before he looks, and leap away when he makes a mistake like this. And he does, shouting.
It's your own fault, useless. You're just too good an actor. Well, that's showbiz.
Bellini, keeping with tradition, watches the man leave, screaming at his back.
They ought to lock up a nut like him.
That's what he
Torch
says!
and don't come back.
For good measure. As Spidey exits stage left, Bellini shouts for everyone to get back to work, and a pissed off Johnny puts his foot down.
If the Hulk shows up next, I quit.
Spidey, scaling a sheer wall, knows he ain't hearing the end of this one.
Brother, I sure blew it that time. I hate to think of how this will read after the Daily Bugle gets a wind of it.
And, speaking of the Bugle, let's visit the office of its peerless publisher, Jocular J. Jonah Jameson, the next AM.
We're at 39th Street, 2nd Avenue, Midtown, limestone building. You can't miss it. Where JJ, lit cigar nub in his mouth, smile on his lips, cornflower blue shirt on, tie loose, stares down at photos of Spidey and Torch doing battle, proverbial dollar signs in his eyes.
What luck! Not only did that web-headed weasel make a blithering jackass of himself, but some of the top movie cameramen in the business got photo of the whole blame business. Of course, I never print these pics and embarrass my old pal Spider-Man. Not much I wouldn't.
Thus, when the next edition hits the streets.
Rain pours down on the city we know and love to open page 9 as a man and woman stand in front of a newsstand, the man holding an umbrella above their heads. And as usual, the random man throws shade, calling Spidey a menace who needs to be run out of town, while the woman says she can't believe this. Spidey's done so many great things, but the pictures are right here in black and white, while the newsstand owner says the way he figures, anyone can pull a boner. All of them oblivious to the man in the foreground in the gray raincoat and blue fedora, eavesdropping hard. The camera pulls in tight on his face, his fedora is pulled down to just over his eyebrows, his collar pulled up to just under his nose, his face masked by both, but the man talks like a villain.
So, the accursed Human Torch is filming a movie, and that fool web-slinger blundered in and almost ruined everything. Well, well, how very interesting. That gives me a most dangerous idea. Dangerous for them, that is.
But it's too nice a day to worry about nasty, mysterious villains just yet. So, let's turn to the ever-popular Peter Parker as he listens to a TV news report.
Pete at home, white button up on, blue slacks, his widow's peeking, about to sit down on the couch in the living room, has his head jerked around towards the box television in the foreground.
It's just been announced that Paragon Productions in Hollywood is anxious to make a new film starring Spider-Man and the Human Torch. This is the result of the public interest that's been aroused by recent newspaper photos. Paragon feels that any film featuring a battle between the Torch and Spider-Man would be the year's biggest smash hit. The Torch has already consented and a nationwide search is in progress to find Spider-Man.
Pete, staring off to the side, his right hand over his mouth, is giving big Weebay meme vibes as he says,
They want me? For a film? A chance for some real money. At last. They won't have to search much longer.
In Spidey's earliest days, he was shunned by the Hollywood machine because of his crime-fighting antics, but this isn't the first time Tinseltown has come calling for his services, since, most notably, Season 1, Episode 14,
Just Deserts.
I mean, that was just a setup for the Green Goblin to attack him in the middle of nowhere, but third time's the charm, I guess. Either way, in no time at all, the Prince of Persnick from the Forest Hill Strip, he's grabbed his suitcase in the gutter between panels and is loading clothes into it in the next panel, his Spidey costume draped over his dresser in the foreground, shouting to no one and everyone.
I never heard of Paragon Productions before. It must be a new studio. But new or old, who cares? As long as they pay Hollywood salaries. When Aunt May gets back from her vacation, won't you be surprised when I greet her with a fistful of money? And it'll be great being able to do the town with Gwen without having to worry how expensive any restaurant is.
Pete wants to give May money and do it big with the heartthrob without having to go into the bathroom and ask his brother to sell him $40 so he can pay the check.
Huh?
Look, man, life was real on the front side of 30. I'm just saying, I relate, Pete. Shout out to Jody V. Back to.
And so a short time later, a roaring jet wings swiftly westward, carrying a youthful passenger to far more adventure than he suspects. Then, 6 hours later,
On 10, we're on the scene. The scene? A Hollywood lot where a topless roadster drives past a cowboy who looks a lot like one of Marvel's oldest heroes, Kid Colt, replete with the red flannel and cowhide vest, past the Roman legionnaire spitting game to Cleopatra. Overhead, Pete's jet flies in.
Hollywood at last. With some of the coops they've got out here, I could probably walk around in my Spidey suit and not even be noticed. Anyway, I better make a success of this little project, because it took every last nickel I've managed to save all year to pay for the plane fare.
Pete cleared out the bank to make bank. You want to make the donuts and you can't do that on dimes. Scared money don't make no money. If he ever go broke, I'm off. I'm on a tangent. It's 4:30. I'm sorry.
finally, a short time after touchdown,
Spidey's arrived on the lot, suited and booted, and is stopped by top flight security who ask an honest question. How do I know you're the real Spider-Man?
Well, I can prove it by carrying you up a steep wall somewhere, or swinging you across a couple of rooftops on my webbing. I'll take your word for it. I kind of thought you would.
and so
We find Spidey in the next panel acting like he's got no home training at all. He's walked into the producer's office and sat on the secretary's desk. Riz on young and menace as a blonde in a fur coat crosses her legs and leans towards him on a couch behind him. Talking to the secretary, he says,
No, I don't have an appointment, but I'm the one the big brass has been looking for. I hope.
When the secretary says fine, she'll set up an appointment for 9 a.m., Spidey says he'll be there, right on the button. But when he turns to leave, a shadowy figure cracks the door to the back office open, watching our hero depart.
It worked. He snapped at the bait, just as I knew he would. By the time he realizes he is the victim of a fantastic, deadly plot, it will be too late. Too late for anything except his final defeat.
The shadowy figure heads back into the room where he's met by another shadowy figure. This one, sitting in an armchair, asks how things went, if Spider-Man suspected anything. The first, looking out of the window over Tintinnabulating, raises both fists.
No, not a thing. This will be our greatest triumph. Before we are done, we will have brought about the destruction of both the mass web spinner and the Human Torch.
So if we know nothing else, we know this one's an act for dramatics. And this tag team wants Spidey and Torchy pushing up daisies.
Then, the next morning, our little wall crawler awakes bright-eyed and bushy-tailed as ever.
On 11, we see Pete slept in his costume, sans mask to save time. He's stretching and shouting that today's a big day, and since there's no limousine, he's going to get back to set in his own swinging style. And he does, zipping above a pool party where someone shouts,
Look, it's Spider-Man!
A sunbathing redhead replies,
So what else is new?
But sis, Spidey don't live out here, acting like you see him all the time. Either way, Spidey hits LA high above the city we know, and, well, we know it, and is almost sideswiped by the Human Torch who soars around the corner of a building.
Hey, watch where you're going, you free-swinging freak!
Spidey insults the Torch as usual, comparing the kid to Jolly Jonah Jameson. The two land in the last panel on page, Spidey telling the Torch not to wrinkle his suit before his screen test, while Torch throws a jab at our hero, saying he didn't know they were remaking Dracula. But Spidey wears a full-on face mask. That joke was lame as hell. On 12, Spidey does what young Lowell wouldn't. Extends a hand in truce.
Look, we're both going to be in the same picture, so why don't we grow up and call it a truce? Okay, Webhead, I'm game if you are, but if you try to upstage me or ask for your name to be lettered bigger than mine, all bets are off. Remember, this truce doesn't mean I have to like you. Don't worry, small fry. I've got enemies who I'd rather be friends with.
Thus, a few seconds later, the Torch and Spidey head for Paragon Studios in a somewhat spectacularly unorthodox manner.
The fragile truce in place, Spidey spins an asbestos web line that Torch takes hold of, and the two rocket towards the set. Johnny Storm leading the way, dragging our favorite web slinger along for the ride.
Then, at last, the great moment begins.
We're back on set, cameras, lights, people moving about in hurried fashion in the background. We've got a bunch of stunt actors dressed in purple helmets and chest plates, and orange sleeves and leggings in the foreground. One of them having his face painted green by the makeup artist. While in the backstage left, the director in a green Hawaiian shirt, brown riding pants, and knee-high boots wraps an arm around Spidey's shoulder.
So it's about aliens who land in Central Park, eh? What am I supposed to do when I spot their spaceship? You try to stop the public from panicking.
On 13, the director shouts it's time to start it up, asking if anyone's seen the Torch, while Spidey, reading the script in the foreground, may have some notes.
The plot sounds kind of corny to me, but I should worry, just so long as they pay me.
Torch shoots onto the scene in the next panel, shouting for Spider-Man to look alive because they're in the big time now. As the director shouts for Torch to get in position, Spidey's feeling apprehensive.
All of a sudden, my spider sense is tingling. But why?
No time for that now because microphone to his lips, the director is ready to go.
Quiet on the set! Places, everybody. This is scene 1, take 1, the Central Park scene where the alien spaceship lands. Okay, Charlie, roll!
And we've got action. Literally. With a Central Park backdrop behind it and a cameraman on a dolly recording it, an alien flying saucer descends on a studio lot as extras race through the full Central Park in suits and 60s dress, screaming.
A flying saucer from outer space. Run, run! It's landing right here in the park. It's an invasion. We're being attacked. They're out to destroy us.
An alien in his purple and orange ray gun in hand descends a ladder from the ship to open 14, speaking perfect English.
Behold how the Earthlings flee in terror.
And our hero arrives as the script calls for, swinging onto the scene in Spy-Yonsei fashion.
Cool it, citizens. Have no fear, all Spidey's here. Let me talk to them. They may not mean us any harm.
This is a solid first take because Torch shoots a fire blast in front of the aliens on cue as Spidey holds up a hand to stop him.
Hold it! Give them a chance first!
But his unease remains.
Everything's going according to the script. So why is my Spidey sense still tingling? Cut!
Either way, they've nailed the first take.
Now we'll shoot it a second time to try a different camera angle.
Torch, feeling himself, says he never knew acting was so easy, while Spidey hands a chin back to the Torch, still can't shake that feeling.
This feeling I have is trying to warn me of something. But What can it be?
And then,
On 15, we get a behind the back shot now of Spidey swinging onto the scene.
Boy, no wonder Hollywood movies are so expensive when they shoot scenes over and over again like this. If only the tingling would stop. Let's see now. What was my line? Oh yeah, I remember. Have no fear. Old Spidey's here. Let me talk to him. They may not mean us any harm. That's the Torch's cue. He'll be zooming down on the scene any second now. In fact, I can already feel the heat getting closer.
And right on cue, the Torch is coming in hot. But instead of swooping in and delivering his lines, he's making a beeline towards our hero, whose head is about to split from his Spidey sense running on full tilt. And on 16, we see why. On a page with only 2 panels, the first Spidey whipping around to stare at the Torch in disbelief, the Long Island Igniter, legs wide, hands above his head, is shooting right at Spidey caught between a rock and a hot place.
He's blowing a bit. This isn't how it's supposed to be. Get back, you fool. You're messing up the whole scene. He's popped his cord. He's trying to attack me.
Back against the wall, Spidey's gonna leap. And he does! Just barely managing to hop onto the side of a green steel girder. And when I say just, I mean it. The Torch's dive bomb so close he sends the back of Spidey's costume.
I have been blistering like a lobster. You incendiary ignoramus, I'm gonna snuff out that freaky flame of yours for keeps.
But the Torch ain't come to talk, he came to play. He does a 180 in the air to open 17, his silence not going unnoticed by the cast and crew. A woman shouts he's gone mad. The director orders him to flame off, shouting that the Torch doesn't know what he's doing. Someone says he'll wreck the set, while a man in a snazzy green bow tie shouts for someone to get the studio police and hoses. But Spidey's seen enough, and long past are the days when he was a showboat without battle prowess. Grabbing a glass reflector panel, he shouts,
You won't need any hoses. I can handle that rotten red hot rat any day.
and hurls it over his shoulder, no look at the incoming Torch, who smashes through it. Now it's gotta be said, Torch is more than a little bit of an aerial acrobat, so when he flies through the reflector panel like in Spidey's thoughts,
A bumbling amateur.
our hero starts to think something is amiss. On 18, as people shout in genuine panic below, a guy worried about getting paid wonders aloud what's going to happen to the picture, while another looks on in full flop sweat. Torch rockets away as Spidey looks on, still perched on the steel girder, still lost in thought.
This gets nuttier all the time. Now he's flying away, giving up the fight. But I don't get it. The reflector didn't seem to hurt him. And no matter what else you say about the Torch, no one can call that guy a quitter.
but at this very moment, there's a certain web-swinging wonder who couldn't care less about any mere motion picture.
Spidey heads straight towards the Torch's tailor, shouting in anger.
He's not getting away from me that easy. And since there's no sign of him here, I'll just check out his dressing room. If he figures to cut out of here, he's bound to stop and get some clothes first. I was right. There's someone inside.
He lands outside of Torch's trailer, unaware of the fact that the Human Torch is actually watching from behind him, thinking that this is perfect and everything's going exactly according to plan. On 19, Spidey decides there's no more time for the niceties.
Since these dressing rooms are only made of extruded aluminum, I won't bother him now. I wouldn't want to disturb that sweet kid, in case he's resting. And if he's not resting, he soon will be. I'll personally see to that.
Spidey wants hands. He is upset. Bro tries to burn my back off. Gripping the base of the aluminum siding and the window above it, he wrenches the whole sheer wall off the trailer. And the Torch was resting. We find Johnny Storm, script in hand, FF uniform on, working on his craft, in complete shock at Spidey's intrusion.
Spider-Man, what in the name of a galloping guru do you think you're doing? If it's a fight you want, just say so, son.
But Torch ain't the type not to realize when things have gotten all the way real. Hold on. How can the Torch both attack Spidey and be completely confused when Spidey starts frickin' working those turntables, you may be asking? Things ain't what they seem.
But now, since our typically titanic tale is nearly half over, we feel it's time to learn the true identities of our mysterious arch-villains. And so, let's take a quiet peek into the executive offices of Paragon Pictures. But remember, nobody make a sound, or they're liable to spot us.
Inside Paragon Pictures, we find the Long Island Igniter's imposter aflame in front of the powder blue sectional of the room. Left hand up, right hand on hip, gloating.
I told you they would suspect nothing.
And who's he talking to? One of my favorites. I'll give you a hint. Lime green gloves, on. Green one-piece leotard resembling chainmail, on. Luxurious purple satin cape flowing down his back, on. And the fishiest of perfect spherical fish bowls on his head. My people, we've got the return of the Master of Monologues, MYSTERIO! And he's got one thing on his mind.
Good. I've waited 2 months for my things for anything to spoil it now. But turn off your flame jets. You're making it much too hot in here.
On 20, he continues.
I must confess that I didn't believe your asbestos suit with those flame jets would enable you to impersonate the Torch so successfully. And the way your uncanny anti-grav disc enabled you to fly, now I know why we call you The Wizard.
And the Wizard makes his ASM debut in a red suit lined with flame jet nozzles running the lengths of his arms, his chest in the shape of an X, his sides, and I imagine his legs, which are out of panel. He pulls the mask from his face, gaunt, slim, white, with thin eyebrows matching thin mustache attached to a full goatee with a tuft of what looks like the scratchiest hair on his chin, remarking that he almost blew the bit when he was flying and didn't swerve fast enough. Before his back to Mysterio, he strips out of his suit and down to a sleeveless t-shirt and boxers, thanking Bullhead for his help on improving his suit. Mysterio, arms folded, says don't mention it, that it was no sweat to the
Greatest special effects man that Hollywood has ever produced.
so humble too. Wizard says it was lucky the two of them met before doing something I'm sure Mysterio has never had to bear witness to.
He starts monologuing.
He starts monologuing. He starts like this prepared speech about how... The minute I saw that item in the Daily Bugle about Spider-Man ruining that scene featuring the torch, my idea was born.
Wizard was the shifty man in the raincoat back on page 9. As the downpour quickens, he reads his newspaper, the ink surely beginning to run. What kind of person reads a newspaper in the rain? Either way, he's thinking that the Torch's movie was government's work, probably an only you can prevent Torchy fires PSA, and now that the film's done, Torch would be ready to star in another movie, especially if the Wild Wizard can convince Spidey to be in the movie with him. He rushes down the street in his excitement, tossing his newspaper in the trash, thinking he's got enough money to set up his own studio on the coast. Y'all know me. Y'all know this is the part where I ramble on a bit about the Wizard hustling backwards. But you know from the spotlight that the man doesn't care about making money over punishing the Torch and curing his boredom. So I'll spare you. He thinks he'll need one very special partner.
I'll admit I was most impressed when you appeared seemingly out of nowhere to answer the ad I had placed in the paper for you. But that is why I wanted you. I had heard of your mysterious talents.
Villains placing ads in the newspaper. Wanted. Help with taking out the Human Torch. Looking for one master illusionist with A1 style and a flowing purple cape. Fishbowl head is optional. I imagine that's what that said. And if there's one thing Mysterio knows how to do, it's make an entrance. He showed up in the Wizard's lair, arms raised, surrounded by yellow smoke. The bowl on his head glinting lime green, shouting,
I am Mysterio. Why have you asked me to come here?
The Wizard's reply was a simple one.
Because we have two enemies in common, Spider-Man and the Human Torch. And I have a plan whereby we can get rid of them both at the same time.
On 21, if you know comic books, you know no good team-up, hero or otherwise, starts without a misunderstanding. And we get one here. Mysterio, high on his own constantly flowing gases supply, I'm sure, says because he hates Spider-Man, he'll hear the Wizard's plan. And if it's a good one, he'll help the man in its execution. The Wizard, now in his Silver Age drippiest, that's purple armor with fin shoulders, purple gloves, underwear and boots, orange sleeves and leggings, oily black hair, slick back, probably got some of that Natura Sibirica from Craven, the Hunter. He has a goldenrod circle on his chest with two lines extending from the middle into the bottom edges of the circle at 5 and 7 o'clock respectively, creating a triangle. He shouts that Mysterio obviously doesn't get what's happening here. He, the Wizard, must give the orders on this. Mysterio, reaching into one of his gauntlets, pulls what looks like a laser pointer from inside, takes aim at the Wizard and fires a red jet of light towards the evil genius, shouting that the beam will hold the man in place. The beam connects square with Wizard's chest, engulfing the man in a red and fiery glow. Mysterio has proven he's won the day.
But no!
From somewhere off panel, a voice shouts,
Guess again, Mysterio, the wondrous Wizard is not so easily subdued.
Before the Wizard, much like his Oz counterpart, pulls back a curtain revealing his true self. The man has a wizard bot. He on Dr. Doom time. Ray gun in hand, he raises it at a shocked Mysterio, who drops his weapon. The Wizard ain't dumb, he's protecting himself. But curveball, instead of firing, he extends an olive branch. In so many words, he says game recognized game. And since neither will cede leadership, they should approach his plan as equal partners. Mysterio's response?
I so agree. Between the two of us, we should be more than a match for our despised arch enemies.
The Wizard goes on to explain his master stroke in the gutter between panels, and as is his way, starts stripping out of his clothes in front of a stranger in the next. Look, it was the 60s. He says it's time to start phase 2. Apparently the two have set up hidden cameras to watch their handiwork unfold because hands on hips, tensions cooled. Mysterio says it's time to see how their victims are doing, that the King of Swing and Human Torch have no idea they're being toyed with like puppets on the dastardly duo's strings.
And as Mysterio and the Wizard turn towards their previously prepared electronic viewer, we can beat them to the scene merely by glancing at the tintinnabulating tableau we see before us.
We're all set and still on action. Spidey swinging, Torchy ducking, Spidey screaming.
I don't know what your crummy game is, Torch, but I'll make you pretty darn sorry you ever tried it on me.
Spidey thinking.
What's the matter with me? Even though he tried to parboil me before, here I am pulling my punch so I won't hurt him while he's not inflamed.
Torchy screaming.
I always thought you were a fruitcake fella, and now I know it. I'll fight you anytime and any place. But how about telling me why?
Spidey shouts for the kid to flame on, that he doesn't want to fight unless it's a fair one. He ain't said nothing but a thing to the Long Island Igniter. Johnny's flamed on in the next panel and launches a fireball at Spidey, causing our hero to leap towards the ceiling and out of the way.
Okay, if this is what you want, it's all yours. Big deal. I can dodge those things while reciting McLuhan backwards.
And McLuhan?
Quoted from Wikipedia.
Herbert Marshall McLuhan, July 21st, 1911 to December 31st, 1980, was a Canadian philosopher whose work is among the cornerstones of the study of media theory. He studied at the University of Manitoba and the University of Cambridge. He began his teaching career as a professor of English at several universities in the United States and Canada before moving to the University of Toronto in 1946, where he remained for the rest of his life. He is known as the father of media studies. McLuhan coined the expression, "The medium is the message," in the first chapter in his Understanding Media, The Extensions of Man, and the term global village. He predicted the World Wide Web almost 30 years before it was invented. He was a fixture in media discourse in the late 1960s, though his influence began to wane in the early 1970s. In the years following his death, he continued to be a controversial figure in academic circles. However, with the arrival of the internet and the World Wide Web, interest was renewed in his work and perspectives.
Thanks, Wikipedia!
And it makes sense Spidey would know McLuhan, being both an academic and a fan of pop culture. He probably finds McLuhan's first book,
The Mechanical Bride, Folklore of the Industrial Man,
wholly fascinating. Speaking on Spidey, I think a huge part of his appeal throughout the decades is because he constantly seems to watch the things the people of the times, Americans in particular, watch and do the things we do. Does this make old comics dated? Absolutely. They are running around tossing asbestos at everybody. Every chance they get, they're tossing asbestos. Asbestos webbing, asbestos suits, and asbestos man. I know that man gotta be dead. But it's always made current comics more fun knowing Spidey and I are watching the same movies or TV shows, reading the same books, talking the same language. And reading his older comics has given me insight into what and who older generations thought were relevant and cool without making fun of them or fourth wall breaking the way a Deadpool or She-Hulk style hero would. It's the same way I hope our crazy train will seem dated listening back 200 episodes from now.
You're pontificating.
Back to action! Leaping from the ceiling and through the hole in the side of the trailer he's created, Spidey tells Torch.
Come on outside, hothead, where I can mop up the whole landscape with you.
Translation?
Catch me outside, how about that?
The Torch shouts he'll be there. And the two open 23 in dramatic fashion. Torch rocketing through the open wall, Spidey arms wide, legs together, flipping through the hole. But Spidey didn't want to fight out in the wide open. He remembers his 1v1 with the Torch on the beach when the hothead started hurling flaming buzzsaws at him. No.
This huge studio set with all its props is just made to order for me.
He's going to use this set. He shoots a web line towards a wooden beam overhead and is airborne in seconds. The Torch only inches behind him, calling him a sap. Doesn't realize that in this world filled with asbestos-lined everything, Spidey's in his element on a sci-fi film set. He grabs a tarp from the rafters above him as the Torch shouts,
"This will only hurt a minute, Pinhead." "You're right, but I'm not the one who's gonna feel it."
Spidey hurls the tarp, the asbestos tarp, towards the Torch. Does Spidey get the hit? Of course he gets the hit. And the tarp wraps around the igniter, extinguishing his flame on all parts of his body it comes in contact with. Torch plummets towards the ground, Spidey taunting him the whole way down.
"Don't go away, bright boy. The party's just beginning."
And the party begins in earnest to open 24. The King of Swing leaps from the rafters horizontally and clocks the Torch full across the jaw with a right hook that he cocks back far enough to hit New York with his elbow, I'm sure.
Here's a little something I've owed you for a long, long time. And us stout-hearted Spider-Men always pay our debts.
But as the Torch corkscrews towards the ground, Spidey begins having second thoughts.
I must be turning soft in my old age. I still can't get myself to swing hard enough to hurt him.
The tarp slips from Torchy's body and he lights back up, pulling up from a dive inches from smashing into the wooden floor of a soundstage. He is livid. And if you can picture it, Silver Age Human Torch, when on fire, essentially usually resembles a red mannequin surrounded by flames in Spidey comics. Why he goes bald when he flames on during this time, I haven't the slightest idea. But this is one of the rare times I've seen his actual face while on fire, looking angry. Spidey finna get this work.
And watching every move, every maneuver from their hidden viewer, we find...
As Torch takes flight again, revenge on her brain, we see Mysterio and the Wizard watching from their full office in what is quite possibly the world's first big screen color television. They got money. But Wizard ain't got no patience.
Blast it! What's wrong with them? Neither one of them is exerting his power to the fullest extent. They should have totally annihilated each other by now.
But Mysterio, a fan of a good brawl, raises a hand to stop Wizard.
Hold it, Wizard. Don't pull that lever yet. Let's give them a little more time. After all, we're in no hurry, and I'm enjoying the show. I never fully realized how fast they were before, or how powerful.
The Wizard, in his anger, raises an angry left fist, his right still gripping the lever.
Wizard, release the handle. You're accidentally activating the ray.
And in his angry gesticulations, he pulls that lever. Back out in the real world, just as Torch is about to lay the fiery hand of vengeance on our hero, a pink ray shoots between the two fighters.
Hey, what's that? Some kind of ray shooting down on us from somewhere in the roof. It just missed us by inches.
Spidey standing vertically on a vertical beam, his feet and fingertips of his right hand touching the beam. It's a beautiful panel. Points up at a huge camera lens surrounded by an ornate circle as Johnny looks on. I gotta rant. This is what I don't understand about these criminals. You're two geniuses. You've proven yourselves masters of everything from anti-gravity to illusion casting. And you couldn't make a smaller lens? You couldn't hide the camera inside the wood? It had to be this big? It had to be this ornate? It looks like a demonic summoning spell. Like the thing is huge. Hustling backwards. And Spidey's starting to put two and two together.
It came from up there. So it looks as though you're not the only enemy I have to contend with out here. In fact, I'm beginning to wonder if the two of us might not have an enemy in common nearby. I see what you mean, fella.
On 26, Mysterio chides the Wizard for ruining the plot before hitting a large red button I'm sure is labeled Emergency. And the button, it controls a massive silver ring, easily large enough to surround Spidey and Torch that descends from the ceiling of the set. Spidey wonders aloud what the gadget does seconds before the ring starts spewing a green mist from the inner part of its circle.
Uh-oh, here's my answer. There's some sort of dry chemical shooting out in the form of gas. Something tells me its purpose isn't exactly to increase our lifespan.
The Torch, over his beef with Spidey, knowing the two have been set up, shouts for Spidey to swing away, to save himself. Cutting and running just ain't in his style, and he guesses the gas will just follow them if they try to run anyway. Torch's flame is being doused again. The dry chemical is another flame retardant. His flame starts turning off again, this time starting with his left hand and face. He lands next to Spidey on the ring and doubles over.
I can't stay afloat much longer. The gas is dousing my flame. If this is the end, Spidey, don't think it hasn't been fun. Because it hasn't.
The man had time for one final quip, but Spidey ain't talking. A lot at least. He's thinking.
Getting hard to breathe. Must do something. Fast.
So Spidey's been affected too. It must be a flame retardant and something to like knock you out. But remember, Spidey can hold his breath for like 8 minutes. There's no worries for the kid. So he puts his idea to life to open 27. The Torch's body flames off, slung over the ring like so much damp laundry. Spidey gets busy.
Hang on, Torch. I knew running couldn't help, but there's just a slim chance that this may do the trick. If I can just pour out the chemical nozzle with my web tool. It's working. Just a few more to go.
The gas dissipating, Torch's flame spreads back up his body and his face. Catching fire, he shouts.
You did it. The gas is getting weaker. Look, I'm starting to flame on again. Now stand back, Spidey. I can melt the rest of the gook away by simply flying through it.
He takes flight again, zigzagging through the air, burning the gas away. Back in their command center, panic covers the Wizard's face as he slams his fist into an open palm.
They're on to us now. We can't afford any more slip-ups. The time for stealth, for secrecy, is past. We must attack and destroy!
Mysterio's heard enough.
It's time for you to shut up and let me do the thinking for a while.
Like, bruh, we were this close and you blew the bit. Spidey and Torch are on the prowl now, racing through the sky, finally side by side. Dare I say, united.
Follow me, Torch. I'm gonna find out who's been turning us against each other. More power to you, web slinger. But how do you know where to go?
Spidey explains his spider sense to open 28, and he says it's a guide, and it's tingling like crazy whenever he faces a cubicle built into the corner of a wall high above them. Johnny says he gets the picture. He shouts, let's travel. And both hands on flamethrower, he sends jets of fire towards the cubicle, ignoring Spidey's protest to slow down because the place may be booby-trapped.
And don't I know it? That's why I'm zooming in first. No matter who or what is in there, I'm gonna steam them out like so.
Everything's a nail to a hammer. Inside the hidden lair, the walls are quite literally steaming and melting. I imagine heat wave lines radiating through the building. And now, we begin to see more cracks forming in the team-up of the Wizard and Mysterio.
The place is getting like a furnace. We can't stay in here any longer. We'll use escape plan A. Is everything in readiness?
Yes, thanks to the genius of Mysterio.
Never mind patting yourself on the back. Let's get out of here.
Wizard ain't got time for shameless self-promotion. Before they can escape, Spidey and Torch come through the ceiling to open 29.
It worked, Spidey. I knew my little steam treatment would smoke them out of there. Okay, gents, just stay where you are. You both got one heck of a lot of explaining to do. Won't wiggle my webs and call me Shaky. It's Mysterio and the ever-loving Wizard. I never thought you two would be so easy to catch.
Shaky and the Torch waste no time diving towards the villains in the next panel. The
But
two
no!
men standing there looking pressed weren't there at all. Just high-tech puffs of smoke. Mysterio ain't called the Master of Illusion for nothing.
Well, looks like I spoke too soon. They're not that easy to catch, mostly because it isn't them. It was just some kind of nutty
That's what he
three-dimensional
said.
decoy images. Now you tell me. But if these are just decoys, where are the real virgins hiding?
For the answer to the Torch's highly logical query, let's stretch our necks a bit and peer atop the roof of one of the many studio buildings.
The Wizard's thrown open the roof hatch and climbed out in the gutter between panels, a sea of studio lots stretching out in every direction on the ground below. As Mysterio ascends the ladder to the roof, the Wizard tries to butter him up. Knowing it's his fault, they're now on the run, he says,
I knew that those images of yours would come in handy sometime, Mysterio.
They're but a small part of my arsenal of magical effects. I now regret that I did not prepare many more. But you have convinced me that your plan was foolproof, and though I should have known better, I allowed you to convince me. However, we can now use a trap which I have set for them. All that remains is to lure them to the proper site.
Mysterio is pissed like, bro, I should have took the lead on this. We set equal partners and your plan led us to this. We may just be screwed.
While, within the building itself,
Inside, Spidey, knowing he was right about the men having been in the room, is convinced the two have made the proverbial exit.
Stage right even.
Torch says they should head to the roof, that if the two men are making a dash for it, the high ground is the best place to spot them. Torch says he'll burn a hole through the roof and the two make an official start to their bromance with weird-ass superhero small talk.
That's real nice of you, Torch. But when the day comes that I can't leap up and punch my way through a flimsy rooftop, I'll turn my weapon for a pink yo-yo. Don't knock yo-yos, webhead. I was the star yo-yo champ of my whole kindergarten class. It's nice to know you were once good at something. Well, hardy har har.
What the hell are they talking about? As they leap towards the ceiling, they get to the roof just in time to see the Wizard and Mysterio each gripping horizontal handles with both hands. The handles are attached to metallic-looking tubes that in turn are attached to a large silver cylindrical contraption with two anti-gravity discs facing down, pulling the villains through the sky. Again, $1 million patent just sitting here being used for villainy. And worse. Get out of Dodge, boys. Y'all got two of the greats on your tail. And speaking of the greats, Spidey and Torch have just hit the rooftop, Spidey wondering how they're going to chase these two buffoons. Torch replying,
Glad you asked, young fella, because I've got the answer for you.
On 31, Spidey gripping one end of an asbestos web line, the other half wrapped around the Torch's ankles, the two fly over a set resembling a lush jungle, complete with thatch-roofed huts and palm trees, hot on the tail of Mysterio and the Wizard. Torch shouting that the two probably want to lose them in the foliage.
But if that's it, they've got another thing coming.
Torch about to turn this jungle into a sandbox, but cooler heads prevail in the form of Spider-Man, who, releasing his web line and falling into the jungle, says he doesn't want the Torch to look like a show-off by wiping out the whole faux jungle, that his Spidey sense will be able to lead him to the villains, no problem. But then...
Hey, what's going on? You don't have to be a Spider-Man to hear that noise.
And you already know footsteps that large in a thatch-roof jungle mean only one thing.
Watch it, Spidey. It's some sort of giant mechanical gorilla. At least I hope it's mechanical. It's mechanical, alright, but that doesn't make it any less dangerous.
Spider-Man and Torch are now fleeing, Torch airborne, Spidey on foot through the knee-high grass of the jungle as a massive brown furred gorilla lumbers forward, ripping apart trees on the ground. Fake-ass King Kong, fake King Kong is in the building. Spidey says mechanical or not, the thing is dangerous. He runs up the side of a palm tree, shouts he's sure Mysterio and the Wizard are controlling the giant from somewhere, that the two lured them into a trap. But if you know anything about Johnny Storm, you know the kid loves himself some impossible odds. Hothead in name and ability, he does a U-turn and makes a beeline for the fake King Kong, shouting that he's gonna handle Chuckles. On 33, we see the Wizard set up shop in another control room, his hand on another lever, staring out of the window at the Torch in action. The scene? Torch resembling the fighter plane circling King Kong. The only thing missing, an Empire State Building and a blonde woman screaming her lungs out. But don't worry, you know in the Silver Age, somebody's always screaming. Wizard, go off.
Ha! The flaming fool is attacking our mechanized killer, just as we knew he would. What a pity he didn't listen to Spider-Man's warning. The masked web slinger must somehow have sensed that the gorilla is constructed of fireproof plastic. Thus, at long last, the Torch shall be destroyed.
Oh boy, we've got a plastic gorilla, and I'll bet it was dipped in asbestos. and fake King Kong lays a right hand on Torch with so much force, he knocks the hero out of the sky and snuffs out his flame with one blow. Torch falls to the ground, unconscious. Fake King Kong hunts over him, a man-sized hand aiming to pick him up.
He got him with one simple blow of his fireproof hand. The Torch is stunned. His flame is snuffed out. He's finished.
But, although we don't like to disagree with anyone, no good guy is ever finished while old Spidey is within attacking range.
And Spidey's on the move.
If that oversized chimp gets his paws on the Torch, it'll be curtains for the kid. I've got to stop him somehow. But my own spider strength is a joke compared to this mountain of mechanical muscle. How am I going to do it?
Agility on best ever, he leaps from the ground 30 feet straight up towards the Mechanopod's back. Ha! As fake King Kong finally lifts the Torch from the ground to open 34, Spidey wrenches open a control panel.
Wait a minute. If he's mechanical, he has to have a control lever somewhere. And I'll bet this little trapdoor doohickey wasn't just put here for show. He's grabbing the Torch. Our time's run out. It's now or never.
And you know it's always now for the kid. With a wicked right hand, he throws caution to the wind and smashes the machinery inside the great beast.
And, in their private bunker, the Wizard and Mysterio wonder about the same thing.
Spider-Man was too fast for us. He deactivated the gorilla.
But we still achieved our objective. He'll never be able to free the Torch from that vice-like grip. That means we'll only have Spider-Man to contend with from now on. And so, our victory is assured.
Spidey took on the Sinister Six, of which Mysterio was one of them. If y'all think y'all could take Spidey 2-on-1, y'all got another think coming.
But, even as the merciless wizard gloats,
agility on full display once more, Spidey leaps over the gorilla's shoulder and onto the ape's forearm, one goal in mind.
He's holding the Torch too tight. The kid can't breathe. If I can't pry those fingers apart, he's finished. Hang on, fella. You've got to hang on.
sometimes a page is drawn which just doesn't seem to need any words. In fact, we feel that a lot of dialogue, captions, and sound effects might actually detract from the sheer stark drama of the illustrations. This powerfully drawn page is a perfect case in point. Enough said.
Spidey, on the fingers of the closed fist, grabs the finger knuckles and tugs as the Torch's lifeless body hangs in the balance. At first, the gorilla's fingers don't give, but then our hero manages to pry the middle finger loose, and quick as a hiccup, flips over into the giant's hand, pushes with all his might, and forces the monster's hand open. Torchy rolls from the thumb of the beast, barely breathing into its palm, as fake King Kong, finally affected by Spidey's attack on its circuitry, freezes. On 36, Spidey's not done. He races up the arm of the gorilla back to the control panel. He reaches into fake King Kong's control panel and pulls a cylinder from inside.
This is what I want. I thought I noticed some magnetically activated fluid used to operate the gear drive. I've a hunch this may come in mighty handy when we have to tackle our two frantic friends again. So I'll just fill a few cartridges and load them into my wrist container.
He does in the gutter between panels, and we find him in the next. His shirt slightly raised, utility belt on full display, right glove off as he loads his web shooter with a fresh cartridge.
Then, a few minutes later, after the Human Torch has fully recovered,
we're back in the bunker where the two villains are plotting next moves as Spidey and Torchy race through the jungle once more.
They have more lives than a pair of cats, but we'll get them yet.
If the web slingers are cursed spider sense, it won't be long before they find us here, which is exactly what we want them to do.
They are now on Plan C and show no signs of slowing down. But our heroes don't either as they race towards the bunker.
Looks like I'm sort of in your debt, Spidey. Forget it, Hunthead. I just did what any red-blooded, clean-cut, self-sacrificing superhero would have done. There's our objective, right ahead of us. Observation slid and all, but we better approach it carefully. It's probably Carlin with booby traps.
Then, after a few frantic seconds of reconnoitering,
Spidey and Torch find the rear entrance and without a moment's caution, race into the tunnel. Spidey, Mysterio, and the Wizard with their backs to them, the heroes race the length of the tunnel, oblivious to the fact that their evil counterparts have hidden cameras in that tunnel and are watching their approach. So they could make cameras that were small enough for Spidey and Torch not to see. What was the deal with that other camera?
Overconfident fools, we've been watching you on our power screen. You've both doomed yourselves.
We had to act unsuspecting to lure you in here, but now you've lost. It's over. Forever!
The Torch isn't convinced.
Are they kidding? Even if they knew we were behind them, what can they do about it? Even as we speak, I've thrown a switch causing you both to be coated with an invisible magnetic field, which will soon destroy you.
Mysterio adds that that was only the beginning, that they prepared barriers, glass barriers that lower over the tunnel entrance the heroes came through and the entrance to the control room. Our heroes are trapped in another precarious situation.
You know something, Spidey? I don't think they really like us. Now, whatever gave you that idea? I kind of hope your flame is cooking on all burners right now, pal, because I've got a feeling we're sure gonna need it.
Precariouser and precariouser. The Wizard, king of flipping switches, hits another one to open 38, shouting that this will be their moment of triumph. And giant boulders shoot out from the walls of the trap in all directions, forcing our heroes to get low. But that isn't enough. Coated by magnetic fields, the boulders are drawn to the heroes despite their best attempts to dodge. As Spidey, agility on best ever, bounces around the chamber, Torch decides to take the direct approach, namely blasting the boulders out of the air. But Spidey can't dodge forever, and true to science, the torch burning inside this confined space is using up the oxygen. No oxygen, no fire, so they're both running out of time. On 39, the torch decides to go on the offensive, flying straight at the barrier, shouting he's going to burn his way through. Everything being a nail to the fiery hammer, he shoots towards the glass barrier and smashes off it. Spidey, used to giving things more thought, still dodging boulders, has a different idea.
Torch, listen to me, quick. Don't try to smash the whole thing. Concentrate your flame, like using a magnifying glass to burn a hole with the sun's rays.
Torch, used to taking advice from a big brain in the form of Snoops Richards, shouts he'll give it a try, and directs a small jet of fire above the heads of the Wizard and MYSTERIO. The concentrated stream punches a hole through the glass, and Spidey gets busy, firing web lines from both shooters through the hole in the shape of an X. The webbing attaches to two separate metal rings in the bunker, Spidey shouting his genius.
That hole is big enough for me to use the magnetized webbing I just whipped up, thereby reversing the magnetic field. Now, gents, it's our turn.
On 40, we see the boulders have begun flying away from Spidey and the Torch with force. So much force, in fact, that a boulder punches through the bunker wall and into the fortified layer, sending ash, dust, backwards, and smashes into the advanced control panel with a mighty crash. And on 41, our heroes waste no time. Before the smoke clears, Torch fires a blast of heat, melting the Wizard's ray gun, while Spidey spins a web net that falls over the villains, trapping them in place. Both villains thoroughly confused.
Defeated again! Oh no! Not again! Not again!
How? How did it happen? I planned everything to perfection. We set a dozen traps. We couldn't fail.
Suspended above the floor in the web prison in the next panel, Spidey, hands on hips, taunts them as LAPD arrives on the scene, guns drawn.
Aw, shut up, you creeps. You think you've got troubles? What about the money I was counting on from your phony movie?
Torch, on much friendlier terms with police than the King of Swing, lets the cops know the villains are gift wrapped and ready for delivery.
Minutes later, the press eagerly arrives upon the scene.
We've got photographers and reporters on scene snapping pictures of the Torch, trying to convince Spidey that he and the Long Island Igniter will make a hell of a tag team in the superhero business. Spidey, his back to all the fuss, waves a hand over his shoulder.
Forget it, gents. The last thing I need right now is a partner. Well then, what do you need?
He sprays a web line and leaps towards the sheer wall of a building and thinks up a response he doesn't say.
Plain fair. Back to New York. But I can't admit that to them.
Torch, still on the ground below, shouts up at the hero with an answer to Spidey's worries.
Hey, Spidey, wait. I'm gonna give you your share of the reward for unnabbing those two clowns. Huh? Did you say reward? Sure. Didn't you know? They're wanted in half the states in the country. You know something, hothead? I think you're beginning to grow on me.
The foundation of their friendship finally forged, Spidey gets ghost.
Thus, an hour later, a somewhat weary webhead dozes contentedly high above the clouds.
And as he sleeps, his head pressed against the border of the final panel stage right, a slight smile on his face, his knees tucked so they don't get walloped with the dinner cart as it passes, a stewardess in her best Pan Am blues walks by with a small tray, stealing a glance at the handsomest of Forest Hill's princes.
He must have had too much sightseeing in Hollywood. I guess he's the type that tires easily.
We don't know about Pete, but after writing 41 pages, we're kind of bushed ourselves. So, enough said. The end.
And 41 pages, 2 villains, at least 3 spunk straps, and a fiery near-death experience later, we're out! My favorite thing about the annuals, the stories could have happened anytime. These early annuals don't ever say where they fit into Spidey history, but always have him solidifying his relationships with the heroes of the Marvel Universe. This time, we see arguably his greatest hero friendship in the long underworld world begin. Y'all know I've been wanting them to get along since day one, but both of them being young hotheads with egos the size of the population of the state they're from, that wasn't an easy go. Like all annuals, the story ends, but we get glimpses into the extended Spider-Man universe. In this one, we see Spidey's closest friends and family in a double-page spread in the ESU unofficial cultural center, the Coffee Bean Barn. I'm not sure, but I think this is the first appearance of this establishment, because right now, the gang hangs out regularly at the Silver Spoon Diner. The signage in the Coffee Bean Barn reads, "Today's special, yesterday's leftovers. If you don't see what you want, forget it. If you think our coffee tastes like dishwater, wait till you taste our dishwater. Free espresso to all. 50-cent rental for the cup and saucer." 50 Cent whistles for the cup and saucers makes me think of Martin, and that makes me think of MC Hammer, and that makes me think of Cole Brown, and that makes me think of
Renner spoons. Yeah, see, we serve them soup for free. Rent 'em spoons.
And we've got Flash Thompson bragging about how he trapped the whole enemy platoon over in Nam as a stunning Mary Jane clings to his arm, staring up in his eyes as the heartthrob Gwen Stacy stands on his other side, agreeing with him when he says they're tired of his army talk. On the opposite page, Pete in a wool goldenrod sweater and his signature blue slacks and loafers leans on a jukebox while Harry, nose in the air Osborn, stands beside him in a burgundy suit, his signature green tie on, saying uniforms really make the girls go crazy. Pete thinks they do. Every uniform except the Spider-Man costume. While in the foreground, the aunties Anna and May sit with coffees in front of them, trying to blend into all this young hip and happening before their eyes. The caption boxes on these pages read,
Special note for future historians. The unvarnished explanation for why we included Jan's seemingly unrelated double-page spread in this never-to-be-forgotten issue is, while working on the rest of the mag, we began to develop a king-size thirst and kept wishing we had some cups of Java, where one thing led to another until, here we are, gulping with the gang.
and
Forgive us for those last 2 bits of dizzy dialogue, faithful one, but it's been a long hot summer, and we didn't think you'd mind if we let off some steam. Just this once.
the next page we get Spidey quick changing, this issue emphasizing his one-way mirrored lenses and his mask, also available in shocking pink and morning after red. Then a page highlighting his web shooters, how the cartridges can't be obtained anywhere, how in order to avoid misfires, the trigger on his palm has to be tapped with the tips of his fingers, how short quick taps lead to a net-like pattern, one short tap makes a web line, and a longer tap leads to a glob-like spray of webbing. We turn the page again and see Spidey's best ever agility as he does a backflip horizontally on the sheer wall of a building in one panel, then racing up the wall towards a firing gunman in another effortlessly. I can't imagine the equilibrium Spidey's brain works with to be able to flip backwards horizontally. I'm getting dizzy just thinking about it. He's clinging on the ceiling next above 2 gangsters oblivious to his presence. Then walking a high wire above the city, his arms outstretched, perfectly balanced. The caption box telling us only someone like Daredevil could do this, but the man without fear wouldn't be able to cling to a thin strand of webbing upside down by the feet reading a newspaper. The kid's agility is really best ever. Then we see the kid going to work with the webbing, parachutes, fireproof shielding, trampolines, escape chutes, airtight bubbles for underwater use. What can't this webbing do? The kid shows off his strength next, lifting a platform with the Thing, Hercules, Thor, Namor, and the Hulk standing on it, arguably at the time Marvel's strongest heroes. The page says these guys may be stronger, but they're also older. The young Spider-Man still has some growing to do, after all. This is followed by a 2-page spread of Spidey's greatest villains at the time, the Cat's Paw, Kraven, the Hunter, the grinning Green Goblin, the one-man hands team, 008 himself, Dr. Octopus, the Sandman, the Vulture, Electro, and the Rampaging Rhino. I think the new Vulture and the Rhino shouldn't get billing over the original Vulture and the Scorpion at this point, but hey, I don't make these rules. And finally, a look into the bachelor pad of Pete and Harry. Other heroes have secret bases, Spidey's got a closet that locks. That's it. And in it, he stores batteries for his spider signal, web fluid cartridges, and lenses for his camera. I don't see a stitch of clothing anywhere in sight. So aside from the Spider-Man costume hanging on the door and the clothes on his back, I'm starting to think Pete only has his SJB slacks and his white collared shirt. It would explain a lot. Either way, that's it. That's all. Love to see it. Art top notch, writing top notch. That's the main episode this week. And that's true. That's the main episode, but there is more Me and My Friend Pete available for your listening pleasure right now. If you sign up to become a patron at patreon.com/HSPP, patrons have a vault filled with bonus episodes covering stories from all over the multiverse of comic book universes. Next bonus episode, we're back in the DC universe, and the choice is up now for the High Council to vote on over at patreon.com/HSPP are
The Flash, Secret Files and Origins, Volume 1, 2010. Robin Spoiler Special, Volume 1, Number 1. Free Comic Book Day, Dawn of DC, Night Terrors, Volume 1, Number 1.
power to the patrons. If you don't choose to board our crazy train, our Season 3 bonus episodes are available to non-patrons for a one-time payment of $5. Next Amazing Spider-Man, Spidey goes one-on-one with the 8-1 in the much-anticipated return of Dr. Otto Octavius, better known lovingly, fearfully, respectfully as Dr. Octopus. In The Amazing Spider-Man number 53,
Enter Dr. Octopus.
The panel of the week can be found at patreon.com/HSPP, free of charge. We ain't drawn. Follow us at MNMFP_podcast on Instagram. You got questions? Send them to me in myfriendpete@gmail.com. We got answers. All that said, that's all that said. Please like, please comment, please share, please
Follow us
take
on
care,
Instagram, why
and
don't
please
you?
think of the world and be true to
Please.
yourself. That dusty trails are calling, so there's no use stalling. You know the tagline for the people? Great power. You already know the rest. Make sure you're being responsible. I'm out of here.